The Jets looking to have a more positive 2025 with a revamped roster, a new head coach, high expectations, and the return of key players. Jets are also looking to make a push in the AFC for the first, well, I shouldn't say that. We've been talking about this team being a Super Bowl team the last 2 years, but that didn't happen. Joining us now is the analyst for CBS Sports, Emory Hunt, who joins us constantly to talk football. Emory, good to have you with us. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, Chris, man. Appreciate you having me on.
So we talk about expectations for the Jets. Each and every year, expectations are high. Expectations are high. They're never met. So how is that going to change for Jet fans this year, do you think?
I think there's a little bit more optimism coming in, honestly, Chris, when you think about the new head coach, where he's coming from, how much he was well-loved out there in Detroit. Aaron Glenn is going to do a phenomenal job with Gang Green. He's a former Jet himself, so he has skins on the wall, pride in the program, and bringing in a young quarterback in Justin Fields that shares that same sentiment of professionalism, of leadership. It's funny because when you think about what this team already has in place and what they've already brought in via free agency, they're in the catbird seat in terms of where they can go in the draft, how they can attack this roster, and continue to be competitive in the AFC.
All right, so let's drill down on some of these things you're talking about. Let's start with Justin Fields first and foremost. Jets go out there, sign him to a 2-year, $40 million deal, $30 million of that guaranteed. As we both know, coming off of the heels of the Aaron Rodgers project here, quarterbacks come to this franchise, they do not necessarily do well. we could rattle off names all the way back to Joe Namath being the last one that had real success here. So what does this organization have to do systematically to change what happens with quarterbacks when they put on that green uniform?
Allow those guys to be the best version of themselves by doing what they do best. And what I like about this fit for Justin Fields is that he knows this is another opportunity to showcase why he should be a starter. Because when you go back to his Bears tenure and the 6 games that he played in Pittsburgh, you never walked away saying they lost that game because of Justin Fields. You recognize he has talent. And what we do understand is that he enhances a run game. So when you combine that with the trio of backs the Jets have on their roster, they already have a great receiver in Garrett Wilson, a chance to get another one, perhaps at pick number 7 in the draft. I think this is the best time for Justin Fields to really elevate and showcase what made him that top 10 pick back in 2021 when he was coming out of Ohio State.
Jets have historically gone with defensive-minded coaches as their head coach when the offense has really been what really needs kind of more support for this team. Aaron, I think, is the perfect choice. I covered him when I was covering the Texans when they were an expansion team 20 years ago when he was on the wonderful guy, turned out to be just as good a coach as he was a player. So they've got it looks like they've got their right guy there. But what do they do in order to kind of make this a more well-rounded team, even though you've got a defensive-minded coach leading the charge?
Well, I think what's going to happen, you're going to have the run game be the main focus of the offensive side of the ball, because a defensive-minded head coach hates facing quarterbacks like Justin Fields, so they know the value of that. And I think what we're going to see in pick 7, they have a lot of ways they can go. They can go receiver out of Arizona, Teteroa McMillan. They can also go defensive line, Mason Graham, pair him up with Quentin Williams. They can even go cornerback with Will Johnson out of Michigan. So there's a lot of ways they can go. This team isn't as bad as people may indicate, or what the record showed last year. There's still a lot of talent on this roster on both sides of the ball.
Big tight end out of Penn State without leaving him remain nameless would not be a bad pick either at 7. Real quickly, speaking of Aaron Rodgers, before we do let you go, what do you think? He's got, it looks like he's sitting back waiting to see what Minnesota wants to do before he makes a choice between the Vikings, Steelers, and then it looks like third on the list would be their crosstown rival Giants.
If I'm those teams, I'm helping him make the decision by pulling the contract off. I want to see him just go into retirement and just do what he needs to do to clear his head, because you can't keep stringing these teams along like this when they have moves that they have to make.
What do you think? If you're him, where would you go?
Oh, Pittsburgh. They have the best setup for him to have success right away, to go off into the sunset and continue to build on what he did the latter part of last season with the New York Jets.
And you really think Pittsburgh over Minnesota, huh?
I would prefer Pittsburgh over Minnesota. I know everyone wants a Brett Favre kind of timeline for him to go to Minnesota, but I think Pittsburgh is set up for success just as much as Minnesota is.
Yeah, I'm just thinking of being indoors for most of your games, the home games, and then the Detroit games indoors. At 42, you know what I mean? You get cold a little faster than most other people. Emory, thank you very much. Good to talk with you. And we'll see how this all plays out. No draft coming up. New season just started yesterday in the NFL, so we'll see plenty of free agent moves yet to be made.